but it's less brain rotting than Daniel's solo review.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so after watching the Disaster Artist movie, went ahead and listened to the audio uh, book version of it, which was written by Greg Sestero and Tom Bissell, and the book is narrated by Greg Sestero, who, of course, if you've seen The Room, he's Mark in The Room.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Oh, hi, Mark. Yeah, it's. I'll try not to go too in depth because I mean, with my review of the movie, but I guess I'll just like talk about the stuff that Greg mentions in the book that didn't get into the movie. Um, like one of the things that was funny was that they had actually cast a different actor to play Mark.
Oh, that poor guy.
They kept calling him Don, but his name was Dan. And they would film a scene with Mark. They'd film the scenes with Greg playing Mark, and then they'd bring Don in to film his scenes, but they weren't really filming. They were just pretending that they were.
Right, they were just jerking this poor guy around.
Yeah, and finally, yeah, and Greg finally tells Tommy, Tommy Wiseau, like, you gotta cut this guy loose. You can't keep doing this to him.
Right, it's unfair.
Yeah. Um, and and of course, just like the chaotic shooting of it all, like it's hearing about like everything that went on, it's not really all that surprising that Tommy spent $6 million on this movie, given all the
No.
different crews that he kept having to hire and pay off, and then buying all the equipment that he didn't need to buy.
Right. You're supposed to rent the cameras, you idiot.
Yeah.
The nice people at the studio even tried to tell him, "Oh, no, you misunderstand, sir. You're supposed to rent these because they expire after a while."
Yeah. And but he couldn't spend any money for water for the actors.
No, no, no one provides water on these shoots. The
No, no,
actors
don't
bring
get
it
water.
themselves.
Yeah, yeah. And no air conditioning either.
Yes, like we're talking like 120 degrees because they had to build the they had to build the top of the building indoors.
Yes. And and what got me too was and unfortunately the actress, I can't remember her name, but the one who plays Lisa's mother, she actually fainted
Yeah,
during the because it got so hot in there. And but when and, like, the first scene they shoot, of course, was the Chris R scene with Denny, which, if you've watched that movie, doesn't go anywhere. The subplot just doesn't go anywhere. And
yep.
but they first filmed it in the alley, which makes sense that it would be in the alley. But then for some reason Tommy was like, "No, we need to do it on the roof." So they refilmed it on the roof, and they had to bring the actor who played Chris R back. and, and then they took out the alley set. They struck it, but then they had to build it again because Tommy wanted to shoot another scene, a scene that meant absolutely nothing in there.
And
Uh, but I think the story that I really liked the most was when they're filming it was right after the "Oh, hi, Mark," the haha, what a story, Mark. The when they were filming the scene, of course, like the story that Mark is telling about, he's telling a story about a girl that he knew that had like a dozen guys, and they all found out about it, and they beat her up so bad she ended up in a hospital. And Tommy, kept laughing, ha ha ha, what a story, Mark. And and so Greg decides, well, I'm going to try to get him to react differently. So he ad libs the line about, oh, she ended up in a hospital on Guerrero Street, because that was where Tommy Wiseau lived in San Francisco, was on Guerrero Street. and Tommy Wiseau being the, I don't talk about my past. I don't talk about don't talk about my life, and none of that. He mentions he lived, mentions Guerrero Street, but it doesn't work. He still does the ha ha, what a story, Mark. And then afterwards, he's like, "What are you doing, Mark? You can't. Why are you talking about Guerrero Street? I can't believe you did that."
Yeah, so I think having also, I started with the audiobook, then watched the movie after. I think
Mhm.
you watched in the right order because
Okay.
seeing the movie shortly after listening to the audiobook, it's like, oh, but you skipped that scene and you skipped that story, and oh, I loved that bit.
Yeah.
Or if you watch the movie first, this is now filling in the gaps in the movie instead of filling the gaps in the movie.
Right. Yeah. And they also the movie kind of condensed a lot of the events too. Like, they in the movie they show Tommy and Greg going to L.A. together, but in reality, Greg went to L.A. before Tommy, and he was living
Mhm.
in Tommy's apartment. And what I the other thing I didn't know was that Greg was in the prequel to Puppet Master. It was called Retro Puppet Master. Um, if you know anything about low budget horror movies, the Puppet Master franchise is a very popular one. It's uh, Full Moon Entertainment. Charlie Band's the producer. He's made like 12 of them. They're all like straight to
Wow.
video. Yeah. But yeah, I had no idea he was in that. But anyway, yeah, it's oh God, what else? There was something else in there.
Um, I liked the bit where early on they they meet his mother, or they meet the author's mother as Tommy is going away with them, and she basically says, "Please don't sleep with my son."
Yeah, like that is. It's like, what is with your mom? That is crazy. What is she saying that? Or the story when I think it was the first chapter when they're going to eat at the Palms, and which is a very exclusive restaurant in LA. And of course they don't have a reservation, and Tommy's like, "Oh, I have a reservation, like for Ron. Don't have a Ron on there. Oh, I'm sorry, Robert." Like, no, no, Robert. Oh no, okay, it's John, party of four. Yeah, that's us.
And just managed to BS his way through it when he really shouldn't have.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, the book really, one of the things I like too is that the book really goes into uh the enigma that is Tommy Wiseau, which, if you know anything about the lore with the room, Tommy Wiseau is just like, nobody knows anything about him. Like, they don't know how old he is. They have a pretty good guess. I mean, I would say he's probably like 60s, maybe pushing 70.
Right? Oh,
um
you mean in the present day?
the present day, yeah, yeah. At the time that the room was made, he was probably like in his 40s or 50s. um and they know that, they don't really know where he's from, although he tells everybody he's from New Orleans, but it's like, oh, come on. You got an Eastern European accent. um but I think the him having that mystique actually helps with the popularity of the movie and the cult like feel of the movie, because it just adds to that,
Right.
to the
You
draw of it. Yeah.
have no idea who this weirdo is, and so the only lens you have to see it is to go buy the DVD of the movie.
Right. Yeah. Um, and I think, something tells me that we're not going to know anything about him until he dies, um, which is probably, hopefully, is later rather than sooner. But
Right, of course.
yeah, but yeah, if much like the movie, if you really liked, if you like the room, and if you like the disaster artists, yeah, like DB said, the book will definitely fill in a lot of the gaps from the movie. So yeah, like DB was saying, what I would say, watch the movie first and then either listen to the audiobook or read the book, because yeah, you'll definitely get more more in-depth look into the insanity of the movie, and of course everything leading up to the making of the movie. So.
Yep.